Hey guys, Jason. And today I have something really interesting to bring to you guys. It's recent news on Bitcoin Savings and Trust. If you don't know what Bitcoin Savings and Trust was, it essentially was a guy that went by the name Pirate, or Pirate at 40. He went by two different aliases, and he was offering 7% yield a week. Now, I know many of you that aren't in the cryptocurrency world or haven't been in for a long time, you might say, well, wow, Jason, 7% a week is a phenomenal amount of money. And it is. And it still is for anyone in Bitcoin or in cryptology. But one thing you have to consider is back when this was going on, Bitcoin's price was exploding. A lot of people were starting to eventually get into cryptocurrencies. They were trading cryptocurrencies and day trading Bitcoin, and we're coming up with great yields. Just like today, you'll look at cryptocurrencies, and some of the very weak coins, you'll see 3,000% a day yield. Some of the more reliable coins, you'll see 300% or 100% yield a day. Now, this is usually sometimes the case of pump and dump, sometimes because of news sources coming out. But it shows that these yields aren't uncommon. But what this guy was doing was, he was basically creating a pyramid scheme that really scammed a lot of users. A total of 700,000 Bitcoins were scammed. Now, at the price when the scam was going on, it's only about 4.5 million, but at the time, that was a large portion of the Bitcoins, and even today, 700,000 Bitcoins is worth a lot of money. And so a lot of people, want to know, and they've been talking about this in forums for the past year or so, what's going to happen? Is this guy going to ever get caught? And he did. He actually got investigated by the SEC, and then information was sent on to the FBI to lead to his arrest. And I'm going to first of all talk about how he got caught, and then we're going to talk about his scam in more detail. So first of all, one of the biggest, dumb things he did was he was taking transactions from an exchange and sending them to his personal bank account that was over $10,000. And if any of you guys know about financial limitations, anything over $10,000 is instantly flagged by any bank or financial institution for the federal government to review, because it's considered prominent ideas of, or prominent suspicion of tax evasion, or money laundering, and that's stuff that they want to look into and make sure that the funds were acquired legally. Well, in this case, he did that, and you might say, well, Jason, why didn't he just go in funds under $10,000? Well, banks and financial institutions are now required by the federal government to use systems that flag even smaller transactions. So say, instead of doing say you want to transfer $15,000. If you transfer it all in one big grouping, then of course you're going to set off flags. And people say, well, why don't you just do, 2,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 smaller funds? Well, if they accumulate over to $10,000 from the same source within a reasonable amount of time, there are systems that also flag that to, again, relate to the same issues with the over $10,000 limit. So, there is a way for the federal government that I think it's actually a good idea. I know a lot of people out in that watch these videos disagree, but in this, the whole goal of this is to stop money laundering, and it actually caught a guy in this case. And this guy I remember back in the day, this guy scammed a lot of hard, honest people that spent their hard, honest money that were kind of trapped into a pyramid scheme, thinking they were going to make 7% a year. It's just I was looking down here for my notes. That's 139% a year return, and it's crazy. But it got people in it. People were making big yields in Bitcoin. People were getting in when Bitcoin was fairly successful, and they were saying, "Wow, look, I can take this money and make more money with it." And from the outside point of view, that might seem kind of stupid, double investing. But I personally had the same experience. Now, I didn't get scammed. I bought Bitcoin, and I had a large amount of Bitcoins, but I invested those right when I got into Bitcoin into mining contracts. And if you know what now, that mining contracts are in most cases a bad representation, especially early in Bitcoin, and especially now when hash rate is exponentially increasing and you kind of get left in the dust. And so having that perspective, I can kind of see why people were looking and saying, okay, I invested in Bitcoin, now I want to make a lot of money. And they were looking at this guy who was promising 7% a week yield, and it looked promising. So what he was doing, instead of actually making returns, what he was doing is that he was taking, the original investors would put money in, and then you get a second tier of investors and third tier and fourth tier. Well, he was taking money from the lower tier and paying off the weekly investments of the top tier. So these people at the top were saying, well, wait, he's paying me 7% yield a week. This is a great, the Bitcoin Savings and Trust is a great thing to invest in. So then he gained a huge, amount of users, 700,000 Bitcoins worth, or 4.3 million at the time, or 4.5 million at the time, actually. And he kind of hit max exposure, and that's when he kind of decided, I'm going to take this money. And that's kind of when he just disappeared. And no one from Bitcoin could actually find out. We could trace the funds. We knew what wallets they were going to. Of course, he tried to separate them and try to make it harder for investigators, but he did get flagged and he did get apprehended. The information from the SEC was sent to the FBI, and so now we have this guy, and his name is Trendon T. Shears, or however you say it. I'm not very good at pronouncing names, and it's going to disgust you with what he spent hard-earned money, investors' hard-earned money with. And I'm going to read these off right now. He paid for his rent. He paid for his car. He paid for expenses. He paid for food. He paid for retail items, high-expense retail items. He paid for a gambling obsession. So think about that. Some guy scammed a lot of people, a lot of Bitcoins, out of people who were just trying to make small profit. Granted, 7% a week yield is pretty high, but you gotta look in the perspective of people at the time. And he took people out of vulnerability, which is so disappointing, so sad, because Bitcoin's all about trust. And it's sad. There's a lot of scams early in Bitcoin. Scams are starting to get harder and harder nowadays. But for instance, back 2011, 2010-ish, there was the first online wallet, and they basically just, after they had a whole bunch of Bitcoins, closed up shop, sold all the Bitcoins, and they took the money. And I shouldn't laugh because it's kind of sad. And a lot of people at the time were the first online wallet. It made not having to get a Bitcoin client, which made it a lot simpler. And it's still the case today. I still warn people, don't use online wallets. Even though they're a lot more safer and secure nowadays, I say don't do it because I had that experience of watching tons of people lose. A lot of people left Bitcoin after that. I watched a lot of people lose a lot of money because they got scammed. And in this case, this Trendon guy, he took hard-earned money and he was using it for his own personal expenses. He didn't even attempt to reinvest that money and help actually make a yield. He was creating a pyramid scheme. Now it is rumored. Now the article kind of linked to this, but it's still kind of questionable that he had 150,000 Bitcoins still in a wallet somewhere or various wallets. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Does he really have those Bitcoins? Will the original people that got scammed get their money back? Will the federal government make him, will take that money? We really don't know right now, and I don't know if we'll ever find out until he's criminally prosecuted and charged. I mean, he's already been charged, but until he goes to trial, we probably won't find out what happens. It might be a case like the Silk Road case where they basically said, you're going to give us the private keys, you're going to give us the password, or you're in a lot of trouble. And he's already in a lot of trouble. But it was kind of one of those things where he kind of, in a plea deal, he was like, okay, well, I'll give you the password to the coins. Can we maybe lessen my sentence just a little bit? And I think that might play a little bit into this case. He might not even have these Bitcoins. He might have tried, he might have used them all up. We really don't, at this point, don't know. Because 150,000 Bitcoins, was that a year ago, 2 years ago, or was that current? Again, it wasn't very pointed out in the articles that I've researched. So right now we really don't know, but it's really interesting to see that there is information out here for the average user. And it's kind of nice to know that Bitcoin Savings and Trust, the guy who scammed us, Pirate at 40, is been charged and investigated. And I think that shows that our legal system is still working pretty good. That someone that scams, even people in Bitcoin, is going to face the full force of the United States law. So thanks for watching. I hope I informed you, and I hope I brought a little bit of information to the scams that Bitcoin creates. Although it's harder now to scam, and I think that's a great thing. Back in the day, people did get scammed and lost a lot of money. Sometimes they lost their entire life savings, and it's pretty sad. And I think we need to reflect on that and look and say, how can we make this better? And it's interesting to go forward and see what happens with this case. Anyway, I'm Jason Schonfel. Thanks for watching.